Regarding Hyperon's influence or influences on Hyperon and Hyperon's influence on things like happy hardcore and the birth of jungle techno, I always saw myself as jungle techno. The happy hardcore thing took one pigeonhole of jungle techno and expanded it in the same way jungle went off, in the same way music went off. This was the start of pigeonholing. Being Hyperon and being 2.5 hours outside of London and not being in Bristol, we were distanced from the whole hubbub and total media focus that works around new sounds in London or Bristol. You know what I mean? If something happens in London on a Monday, by Friday the whole of London knows about it, and then it's been talked about, and then the world is thinking this is the new sound, because there's so much of a quick focus and media attention. Whereas Hyperon was outside of that. We didn't mingle. It wasn't like we were hanging out with all the DJs and all the other musicians. We weren't. We were just two kids out in the sticks making tunes that we heard at the raves we went to. So the influence wasn't so hard on us. And the happy hardcore thing, although you can trace a lot of what is in Hyperon into happy hardcore, it didn't really affect us. Happy hardcore went full on, almost 4/4 with the synth pads and the squeaky female vocals, and that was fine. That's what that did, and for a while that really worked. I mean, it kind of led on to the whole Gabba thing, and that thing was one area. But I liked beats, I like breaks. That's me through and through. I'm a b-boy at heart, and I like to hear fat beats and heavy snares. So the happy hardcore thing never really was a hindrance to me. The influence of happy hardcore or people's perception on the negativity or positivity of it never really influenced me, because I never heard about it. The only information I had was from magazines like Blues and Soul, NME, and some of the radio shows that we get sent up from London. So really, there wasn't much of an influence. It never really affected us, and I really feel our isolation in East Anglia really helped me, both as Hyperon and as Easy Rollers, and even to this day. You know, I can go on forever, but people like leaving cities and coming to where I am. They find the pace of life different. They find there's less to concentrate on. You don't leave where I am now and walk out to a street with 10,000 people on it. You know, you can walk from here to town, you might pass 20. That makes a difference. You know, none of the buildings are higher than 2 stories, so you can always see the sky. It's not like in London where you don't always see the sky. So being up here, being insulated, helped us progress musically, because there wasn't a constant influence. Where I know bands happen now, and I say, oh yeah, you're in that mould with that mould, and all of a sudden you've been pigeonholed, and all of a sudden you almost feel that you have to be in that hole to have this attention, and that never happened to us. We didn't have that media attention. We just made music. So the only influence was what we did ourselves, what we heard in nightclubs. So really, I don't think that's changed so much today, because people do try to make the music that they hear in nightclubs. That's why they use so much limiter and compression. They want their music to sound like being played over 20k. All we heard was the vibe off 20k rather than the beats. I didn't understand what compression was. I didn't understand what all these things was. The first 4 Hyperon EPs were recorded without compression on anything ever. They're so dynamically rich and punchy when you listen to them. You wouldn't do these tunes now. No one would. Everyone talks about -10 RMS, and those tunes must be at -17, -20. Yet they sound so rich and dynamic and engaging, and people like them. So the influences, happy hardcore was never a problem. I thought it was a joke when I first heard the phrase, but when I heard it out, I just thought, oh, well, they've taken that style that far. I'll go in the back room where they're playing jungle techno. And that's what I did. So Laws of Low Line was a popular tune, and Rob chose to get it remixed. And at the time, there was a band called Foul Play. Foul Play with 3 members, Steve Gurley, Stephen Bradshaw, and John Morrow. I ultimately ended up being the engineer for what was left of Foul Play after Steve Gurley left and became Rogue Unit. Rob sent Foul Play up to me, and I did a lot of work for them, engineering, but we'll come back to that. So Foul Play did the mix. Foul Play did a really good mix. I mean, this was massive. I know it did multiple units. I mean, it was massive, massive, massive. But they took our ideas and recreated them in their own way. They simplified things a little bit whilst keeping the editing and the drum programming of Hyperon. They did that very well, very, very well indeed. I believe it was Steve Gurley who engineered that, and I think it was an exceptional job. The balance, I can remember thinking the balance between the way the drums had their weight and where the bass sat and where the sound sat. I really felt that was really good. A lot of that comes down to the choice of individual sound, and he had used our samples. I mean, that tune, the original Laws and Null Lines, has a very dynamic openness to it that you can see into, and there's space in there for you to be as well as the music. It's really good, and that was also captured by Foul Play in their remix. But Foul Play's remix was 100% dance floor friendly, and that's really what helped Hyperon. Hyperon had a lot of sort of commercial ideas, if you like, commercial in the form of the underground Long Like It. However, we presented it in a way that wasn't formatted and DJ friendly. And Foul Play brought that. They brought that to Laws of the Null Line. And because of the Voodoo Magic Man sample, people like that sample, people like the beat, they like that whole thing. And it did help spawn something. And that tune did stand out. In fact, Voodoo Magic was when Rob Playford from Moving Shadow ran club nights in London. I can't remember where, but he called them Voodoo Magic, named after this tune, which I was quite proud of. I was a little bit miffed that he'd taken it, but then if it ain't nailed down, I would have taken it too. What can I say? I'm a sample thief. So it was good, and there were lots of remixes. Foul Play made the best one. Chaotic Chemistry, which was Rob Playford did one, and Photech got involved, and then Foul Play did another one, didn't they? Nookie did one. Oh God. Ray Keefe, did he? I don't know, Ray Keefe, no, there was someone else. Everyone had a go. Pretty much, if you knew Rob, he gave you the samples and you could do a mix of Laws of the Null Lines. So I forget, maybe there was 6, maybe there were 9 different remixes. But it was fun, it was good. And I really did like what Foul Play did. In fact, sometimes when Hyperon played live, we just used to play the DAT off the Foul Play tune. Which is a total cop-out, because we also did live, but every now and then we just put the DAT on. Thumbs up, off we go. Miming to someone else's tune, yeah. So yeah, it was really good. It was really good. Foul Play brought something new, and I thought what they did was exceptional. Crossing that over to the dance floor, something that Hyperon hadn't done. So it's good. What Foul Play did was what Foul Play did. Did it influence my later productions? No, I really don't think so. I think Hyperon had their own. We had our own ideas and goals. It was a conglomerate of outrageous ideas, sequenced one after the other. It was mostly about not making it boring. And although, traditionally dance music has a repetitious nature about it and a formulaic nature about it, what we did was a hybrid of dance. And looking back on it, I see it as a hybrid of dance. At the time, it was all I could do. It was what I wanted to do and dance to. That's what I liked. But no, we just kept on. We just kept on doing what we did in our way. We kept on doing that till '94. So no, it didn't. Everything would have influenced us, but the formula of the Foul Play mix, we maybe experimented. There's a track called Little Ruffian, which had an intro which Rob said, oh yeah, I thought it was going to start like that, and I thought you were going to go, but then you just went off and you were Hyperon again. I think what Rob really wanted us to do was break our tunes down a little bit, make them more a little bit formulaic, and leave them like that. But that didn't really happen until Jay entered as Easy Rollers, when I started working with Jay, and Jay was more of a producer rather than an ideas man, and he'd say, that's good, that's not good, put more bars in there, rather than the Hyperon full-on change. I mean, you heard it, sometimes they were changing every 2 bars, let alone 8 or 16. So yeah, no, I felt that Hyperon just kept on being Hyperon. So ultimately we come to the Fourth EP. The Fourth EP had 3 tunes on. The reason it had 3 tunes on is that we went to the studio to mix them down, and the last tune, which came out with Tango Remix of Disturbed, I can't remember what it was called, we couldn't mix it in time, and we booked 2 days in the studio, and it got to the Sunday night, it was about 8 o'clock, and me and Danny were sitting there going, can't finish it, and it had got a little argumentative as well, and I turned around to him and I'd gone, you finish it then, go on, you finish it, and we were worried that we were spending Moving Shadows money to mix down the tunes, and we hadn't actually quite done the 4th record, the 4th track. It hadn't been finished, we just put the studio time and the tune wasn't done. Blah blah blah. So we only had 3 tunes, that's why there were 3 tunes done. So Little Ruffian, let's go into that. So this starts with like all this military drum. Now originally this had a bunch of Aswad samples. Aswad samples going, this is live and direct. You know what live and direct means? It means live and direct. And we'd mucked around with all those samples. But we'd had to take them out because they were Aswad samples and they weren't ours, and it was a bit blatant. Again, it's got one of those Hyperon intros where it's just another part of another tune put onto the start of the tune, and then the tune starts. Okay, again, it's experimenting with drums. I mean, we loved doing this. I just love drums. I have so many break beats and stuff, and I still collect break beats now. In fact, I've got more break beats than there are break beats. I've just got all the break beats there are. And I just love it. It's a loop round break beats, always playing with break beats. And this song starts with that. It starts with how much fun can we have with break beats. It's a little bit like Lords and Night. Again, loads and loads of little hip hop samples. But for me, the best part is the breakdown. So one of my favourite records is Wheels of Steel by Grandmaster Flash. And it's got that sort of stab from Freak Good Times. Yeah. And so I'd taken that and I'd looped it. And then I played it in a pattern. So when it drops, it's got the sample Grandmaster Flash from Freak that we took from Grandmaster Flash and then mucked around and looped up. So when eventually the drop comes, after all this mad drum editing, here we go. So now you hear Freak Good Times or whatever it was. But that came from Grandmaster Flash and I looped it up. Yeah, that was quite fun. However, this was actually a little bit too much on the edge of cheesy for me. I know that we did the tune and we finished it, but it pretty much represented the end of what I wanted to do. Pretty much ended up, it was the end of what I wanted to do with those synth line riffs, do you know what I mean? Even when I was making this tune, I felt that the actual idea had run its course. You know, it had been about 2 or 3 years of using those sounds. So even though I listen to this now, it's got the beats that I love. But if we'd have swapped it out with something a bit different, I would have been more happy. But you know. Also, you can tell now that the arrangement doesn't change so much. It's keeping. That's the 16. That's now gone into a second 16 with additional percussion. So that's different from Hypron again. So now we bridge. Yeah. Alright, so now we're into drum and bass. That's not too bad. I forgot how this tune goes. I don't really like this one, so I don't listen to it so much. So that's a really nice little bass line running down there. Juno 6 star. Lots of drum programming. I mean, you can hear from this programming, you can hear all the old hype stuff and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That's all the stuff that happened there. I can remember this now. I can remember that little bass line sound. I can remember I couldn't mix it. I had trouble mixing it. And I turned to the studio owner, a guy called Richard Hamilton. I said, Hammy, can you come and EQ this bass line for me? And he walked up to it and took all the bass out. And I said, no, I want the bass, not the drums. And I learnt then the importance of communication between producer and engineer. There's one little lesson I learned. Tell the fucker what you want, rather than just telling him what to do. So I can remember doing that. Yeah, this one doesn't have as much of the enjoyment of Hypron. Wow, still drums. Actually, I quite like this now. It's better than the second half. That's so good. It's Calypso, isn't it? Still drums. Who uses them? Yeah, that's better. The second half of the tune is better than the first half. Oh yeah, that's what we need, a completely different switch, 3/4 way to tune. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, put some laughs in there, that sounds right. Oh! That should have been the start. That was taken from Rob Playford actually, that's a total steal. He'd done some tune as Two Bad Minds or something, and I liked it and I took it and I took it. So there are 4 tunes here at the moment. This is really good. So the second half is really sweet. So you've got a pitch bend, sub-bass tone note. That's really working well. That's really groovy. In fact, this tune would benefit from a rearrangement. Lose all that cheesy stab at the intro and go straight into this. I like the techno influences. Ball, that's really sweet. I like that. And the beats, they're fucking having it, aren't they? They're really having it. Okay, then back into the first bass line that defines the drum and bass. Yeah, that's alright, that tune's alright. Ultimately, what upsets me is the first breakdown. I don't like the first breakdown. But pretty much from then on, the steel drums, the introduction of the new bass line, and the that little melody that goes da, 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 that follows the bass line, and was made by filtering down a very small poppy sound, maybe just a tone, so it shaped into a pop, with an amplitude envelope with a really short decay to a zero sustain. That's how that's made. All we did was just sequence it and then follow the pitch shift with the bass line. That's how that was done. That's really quite effective. Incidentally, I've tried to do those things again at modern drum and bass tempos. They simply don't work. There's something about the tempo of these original tunes. They're kind of between 145 and 160. We never really went above that. At 145 to 155, you've got a lot of dynamic range. You've got a lot of scope between the first kick and the snare to put dynamics, other sounds. There seems to be just enough breath. Whereas at drum and bass now, the beats are so fast, we have to dance to the bass line. Really, that's how you do it. If you dance to the snares, you end up looking like crazy Americans, and no one wants that. So at that tempo, you can still dance to the beats. There's enough dynamic range, and I like it. There's enough of a groove. I mean, really, 140, that's dubstep tempo, isn't it? Or it's up-tempo house, isn't it? It's almost into, I don't know what you'd call that. I don't know. All I know is at that tempo, there's a possibility of groove. Whereas at modern drum and bass tempos, that groove is diminished a lot. It's very hard to get that groove. The best you can do is use immense amounts of compression to try and get some sort of dynamic in there. But that doesn't really work. Whereas naturally, that sort of groove falls out at sort of 150 beats per minute. So yeah, that's the big difference from me, the music then. There is a lot of natural groove. And of course, these tunes were done without compression. We didn't have EQ, dynamic compression, channel emulation, more EQ, enhancement on every channel and everything, slammed up into zero, pumping it up with, and then adding more transient shaping afterwards. We did none of that. The tunes just, if the break sounded good, we put it in. There's no tuning of kicks, we didn't high pass anything to make it avoid any mid-range harmonic difficulties. We just did it. We didn't know the rules, we just made music without rules. And that's what it sounds like. When you don't follow a formula, you end up with bits that you like and bits you don't. I think Lil Ruffian really encapsulates that. So now we come to Monica the Glen. Monica the Glen. Actually, we'll cut to it later because I've got the CD. Okay, so now we come to Monica the Glen. Monica the Glen, great tune, one of my favourite Hyperon tunes. Totally amazing tune. There wasn't really much of a premise behind it. Essentially, the intro synth pad pattern was a standard 4x4 thing. I really did like the 4x4 thing. Danny wasn't so much into it. In fact, as I said on the Facebook page, we had an argument one time where we were working on some beats and I had this kick drum running through it, and Danny just turned around and he was shuffling around and he just said, "Why do we always have to have that fucking kick drum through everything?" And I was like, So maybe I took it out. So we started taking the kicks out. But in this tune, we had both of them. We had the 4/4, which is almost the heavy hardcore thing, running into beats, running into almost rock note rhythms. So when you hear this arpeggiate, it wasn't arpeggiate, it was programmed. So I programmed each note in the sequencer rather than playing it, because I couldn't play this. But this is marvellously euphoric and uplifting. And that's what I like from music. I like happy music that makes you happy. I don't like to be educated by music. I like simple music that I don't have to try to understand. And this contains that. So it's, even when the kick drum comes in, which it doesn't do yet, but it will do. This is a really joyous tune. Has loads of Korg M1, which is such an amazing synthesizer, sample base. So yeah, standard 4x4. This one sounds actually quite fast. Again, this would have been at 160. It got the name Monica the Glen from Chinese takeaway. We'll just go through this because I love this bit. Pesce always said, roll the drums. He used to use it as part of his repertoire. He'd say, so when this tune drops, roll the drums. So that drops into jungle techno. But I can remember when we were working on this tune, I went to the Chinese round the corner and got a takeaway. And as I sat down, I read one of the magazines there, and there was an advert for a Japanese 4x4. And it showed this 4x4 on the top of a mountain, and it said King of the Mountain, Monica the Glen. And I walked out of the Chinese, and I thought, Monica the Glen, that's a great name. So I walked back into the Chinese, walked up to the magazine, ripped the page out, put it in my bag, and walked out again. And then I cut out the Monica the Glen bit and stuck it on the floppy disk. So that's how Monica the Glen comes from. The actual beat that's in here came from a free sample CD that came from Time and Space. It was called the Time and Space Sample. All these crazy little pad sounds, they came from a CD called A to D, Analog to Digital, where people have taken loads of analog sounds and made them up. And this sound here, when this comes in here, I mean, that is classic Enjoy. Enjoy stroke Prodigy stroke every other rave tune. That kind of did that. And then when it switches here, it doesn't switch, sorry, the next time it switches. When I was mixing this down in the studio owner came in and went, "What's this? It sounds like rock music now, what are you doing?" So this bit here. I can remember programming the pitch bend and the chord going one, like that. And the actual program, the pitch programming, overlapped, so I had to put a reset pitch message on the one to get it back in key. But I really like this. And it actually, this tune drifts out into almost like a two-step kind of half-step thing where it's sort of some piano comes back in just before we introduce the original bridge back in. Really nicely arranged, really nicely orchestrated. Lots of really great programming tricks that I really enjoyed. Yeah, that's still quite an intense techno sound, jungle techno. But there's another bridge that happens where it drifts out, another pad comes in, some sprinkles of high-end piano drop over the top and it becomes a really lazy kind of groove. I think it starts along here. So this is the start of the bridge back into the first breakdown. Lots of pitch shift drums, which we did with pitch rather than like eventide harmonisers, which is what Rob Playford used to do the drums on Goldie's Terminator. That was all done with an eventide harmoniser, which was like a £2,000 piece of kit. I mean, this is early house influences that sprinkle but with breakbeats. And then it breaks down again to the original pattern. And goes around. Yeah, really enjoyable tune to make. I still enjoy listening to this because the program is a little bit more smoother, a little bit less disjointed than the original high point stuff, you know. Back into the 4/4, which worked really well. I did a gig up in Stirling in Scotland where we played this and all our tunes just fell flat until we played this and the place went mental, just because of the kick. In fact, it was a really strange night because it was like a 12-hour all-nighter and all I heard all night was just, 500 different kick drops. That's all we heard all night. And then we came on and played. There was even a little bit of argy-bargy because there were three bands on and a band on in front of us got all leery about how they were going to set their gear up. And he really started kicking off and I just stood there and waited till he finished. And he went a bit red-faced, looked down at his shoes and walked away. I remember that night, yeah. I got 2 hours sleep. I've been in Birmingham the night before, then I had to go to Stirling, which is quite a long journey, then back down there. I had like 2 hours sleep in 3 days. So that was really good. But this tune was lovely, Monica the Glen, one of my favourites without a doubt. Much more sculpted. Oh, I don't know why that ends like that. Whoa. So yeah, I really enjoyed that tune, Monica the Glen, well, one of my favourites without a doubt.